Time now for weather with Nebraska Extension Ag Climatologist and Market Journal Chief Meteorologist Al Dutcher. Al, over here in Lincoln at least, we're starting to warm up a little bit. How's the week shaping up for the rest of the state?
Well, Troy, we did see those cool temperatures during the early part of the week, and as the week gradually progressed, we've seen those temperatures ramp up, and some of the 90-degree weather in the Panhandle finally made its way into eastern Nebraska as we got into Thursday and Friday. And of course, we've seen some precipitation kind of scattered, but nothing really significant outside of a few small pockets, particularly around the Lexington area, a little bit toward the north and the east of Grand Island, where we've seen some of the thunderstorm activity, from Wednesday night. Of course, we've seen some isolated thunderstorms since then, and now we have a main precipitation band potentially going to hit eastern Nebraska as we go through this next 24 hours. And then things start to look a little bit weaker in terms of precipitation chances, with more heat returning, unfortunately, as we go through the early part of next week, and then we'll see a return of that heat potentially a little later down the road. So let's take a look at the upper air models, and the first thing I'll draw your attention to is that we do have a trough that is moving through the central plains right as we speak, and this is expected to generate some thunderstorm activity with the best likelihood across eastern Nebraska. So the surface low up in eastern, northeastern South Dakota will actually have some moisture feeding up from the Gulf of Mexico. Looks like we'll see thunderstorm development across the eastern one-third of the state and western Iowa. And as we go into tomorrow, that low pressure trough will start to move toward the northeast and the western Great Lakes. We'll still keep some residual precipitation around eastern Nebraska. Another low sets up in eastern Montana. You can see that most of the heavier precipitation is expected to be generated over Iowa, but I wouldn't rule out that we'll see some half-inch to inch amounts across eastern Nebraska. Going to Monday, there'll be an upper air trough starting to move its way across the northern plains. Low pressure will set up over north central Kansas. There will be some moisture bringing northward, so we might see some isolated thunderstorm activity across the southeastern part of the state, but more concentrated to our east. This trough begins to move toward the Great Lakes, and that will pull some cooler air in finally as we get into Tuesday into our region and start to break the 90-degree temperatures. Low pressure will set up over north central Kansas, and the GFS model at least is showing that we may see a thunderstorm complex developing over east central and southeastern Nebraska. As we get to Wednesday, this trough starts to lift off, and once again we start to see the ridge building back into our region, so we're going to start to see a gradual ramp up of our temperatures. Doesn't look like we'll see much in the way of precipitation over the northwestern part of the state, but once again that frontal boundary will hang up across southern Nebraska, and we may generate once again some thunderstorm activity. On Thursday, a weak trough tries to progress across the northern part of the state. We don't have a lot of lift with this system, but we can't rule out some isolated thunderstorm activity, sort of like what we've seen earlier this week. And then as we get into Friday, another trough tries to drive into the northern Rockies, but will still be well above normal temperature-wise across the southern part of the state. And probably the second half of next week, and when that trough will start to make an impact on Nebraska. So for the most part, we'll be expecting some sticky conditions. An isolated thunderstorm can't be ruled out, but our temperature definitely will be above normal as we move back up into the upper 80s to the mid-90s, depending on where you are in the state. If we go a little farther down the road, above normal temperatures are projected by the Climate Prediction Center from next Thursday to the following Tuesday. And in terms of precipitation, below normal precipitation, but I would watch this trough. It may generate a little bit more activity than is currently showed on this model, but overall, it does look like we will see warm temperatures at least through Monday, and then we'll start to see a slight cooling trend before we warm back up later in next week for the temperatures.